Do you have any boundaries you'd like to tell me about? Oh, I see. Boundaries. For a lot of people, setting boundaries is really difficult. My guess is primarily because whenever we're kids, we don't get to set our own boundaries. For a lot of us, saying no to someone is a risky thing. What if they don't like you anymore after that? But have you ever been in a situation where your boss keeps on stacking on work, doing double shifts, working over the weekend? Maybe people keep on asking for favors that you don't really want to do, but you do it once because they are important to you, but then that becomes the norm. Maybe someone just keeps on doing things that you don't really like. The truth of it is that you train people how you want to be treated. If you are telling them subconsciously, hey, I'm really, really flexible. I will do whatever you want me to because I want you to like me, then that's how they're going to treat you. If you want to be treated the way that you want to, you need to set that up for yourself. The problem is that a lot of boundaries aren't set up until they're actually pushed. A lot of setting up boundaries is actually knowing yourself and knowing your identity. But by setting these boundaries, you are, how do I say this? Being a badass bitch. It might be helpful to make a list of boundaries that you would like to keep and things that you might not have told somebody because you're afraid of hurting their feelings. I have a boundary I'd like to tell you about. Domingo, I love you. I don't like being kissed on the face or in the mouth because I think it's gross. If somebody leaves you or gets rid of you because you've set a boundary that is really important to you, maybe they don't really unconditionally care about you. Some people only keep people around because they like to use them. Don't be used. If you already know your boundary, set it early and often. It is way less awkward if in the beginning of meeting somebody, say a client, if you're in a professional setting, you're able to say, hey, I don't take calls past 5:30 or on the weekends. And that is way less awkward than when they call you and you're like, chances are that people are going to walk over these boundaries. And it's not because they might not care about them. Some people don't. But the truth of it is that people aren't thinking about you all the time. They're just doing their thing, trying to get shit done. And if they step over a boundary that you've already set, I'd be patient and set it again. If it keeps on happening, you might talk to them about that. Chances are, whenever you set a boundary, it's either people are like,
oh yeah, that's fair. That's cool. That's cool.
Or they're like,
are you serious? I have so much work to do by this date, and I really need you to work over the weekend because if we don't get this done, then we have to postpone this thing over again, and blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, I thought you were such a good worker. I thought you could do this for me, blah, 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 blah. And now I have to work over the weekend to make it happen.
sorry, but no, I'm not falling for your guilt trip, man. It's good to distinguish what are your problems and what are somebody else's problems. If it's not really your problem. By the way, you should go check out my other video, what kind of problems do you want to have? Because that is really good for gauging how you want to live your life, what kind of things that you're willing to do, and setting up boundaries as well. Stick firm with your boundaries. If you're kind of wishy-washy, people will know that if they just put a little pressure on you, then they can get their way. But this is bad in the long run, especially if it's somebody that you really care about the relationship with them. Because boundaries crossed are pent up energy. pretty soon you'll be so angry that it's going to come out in a really awful way. There is a good way to set boundaries and there's a bad way to set boundaries. Make sure you use I statements and give them a consequence for why it's important to you. Try not to play the blame game. That is not what boundaries are about. It's not about them, it's about you and how you feel about certain actions being taken, okay? My last but not least advice is to not beat around the bush. If you're going to set a boundary, be direct, be firm, even if your knees are shaking and your heart is pounding and you're like, people might not understand what you need unless you say it really firmly and really directly. And I'm not the best at this. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it, that especially with people that I really love, I go really far above and beyond for them, and sometimes it's not the best thing. I have to make sure that it's going to be something that I enjoy and feel safe in the ability to say no. Something that my friend told me was, it's good to set your expectations, and are you willing to let that person go if they cannot meet them? But yeah, how many of you guys have a hard time setting boundaries? And if not, what kind of boundaries do you set for yourself? For me, I don't make obligations past 5:30 or on the weekends because this is my free time. So, yep. All right. Good luck out there.